Now that we have our ball bouncing, let's have a look at how we can create a decay so it bounces more and more before it comes to a complete stop. Let me move this up. And then I'll just make a little more space here and zoom in. And what I'll do now is to go and get rid of everything except the geometry. So I'll go to Filter and choose Geometry Only. So that's all I'm seeing now. I'll put this closer here so I can make a bit more space. Now as you can see, there's a sort of a pattern here. So it kind of starts with a curve, comes down, and then a curve again, and comes down, and then one more curve. And the closer you can follow that pattern, the more believable this will be. Now I can see this middle one is almost like a mini version of this first one. Of course, the first one doesn't have the left side because that's where it starts from. But if you imagine the right side of this middle one, this curve, that resembles this curve here. But this one here is a little wider than the rest. Can you see? If I was to take this in a box and then move it here, they would just not line up. So your aim when it comes to creating decay is to make these curves as similar to each other as possible as the overall shape gets smaller and smaller. Here's what I mean. You see how this curve is a little pointy and this one is a little more flat? I'd make this one also a little pointy. So I'm going to hold down Command and then push this one that way a little bit. So this now resembles more of this shape. And I want to create smaller versions of this on the right hand side. Let's say maybe 3 more bounces. So I could of course go forward, add more keyframes, and then forward again and more keyframes. Or I could actually copy and paste these keyframes towards the right hand side. So first of all, what I want to do is to take this keyframe and then have a copy of that somewhere on the right, but lower it down. Remember, the ball is going to lose energy as it keeps bouncing. So I'm going to hold down Command and then just drag this keyframe to create a copy of that. As soon as I go past that last keyframe, you see that will create a new curve here. I'll lower this down. Maybe there. This will mess up this part of the keyframe, but that's fine. We know how to fix this already. If I leave this as it is, it's actually going to dip down below the floor, which I don't want. So if I go and play this, you see, instead of stopping at this point, it actually goes down, then comes up. So I'm going to select that, and then Shift, and then move this up. I want, of course, another keyframe here. We don't want that to stay there. So I'll hold down Command and then drag this so it creates a copy of that. I'll also hold down Shift so I can't go up and down, so that ensures that the keyframe remains at the 0 point. And I'll let go. And then I can go and tweak these handles and the keyframes. Remember, our aim is to make this curve as similar to this curve as possible. So I'm going to move this keyframe here. And then maybe make this a little shorter. Select the handle here. Make this a little shorter that way maybe. And I can see that this keyframe doesn't look like it's actually in the middle. So I can push this left by 1. And then maybe this one goes left by 1. And that feels more like it. If I go and play this, let's see what that looks like. That last part feels a little too fast. So I can either slow the whole thing down, or I can tell it to jump less. I can push this down so it doesn't jump as high, which means it won't go as fast. I can now, of course, select these and then tweak these handles as well. And then this one, and then that goes down. Let's play again. That feels fine. I'm going to need to create this a couple more times now. Now, of course, my timeline is only 72 frames long. So let me just go and increase this to, let's say, 120. And then I'll just push this to the side. I'll take the last 2 keyframes and then Command drag them towards right, holding down the Shift key now as well, so it doesn't move up and down. And I'll push this keyframe here down so it doesn't jump as high. And I'll tweak the handles as well, so we don't have any overshoots like that. And this one will go down. I can zoom into this by holding down 2 and then just dragging towards right or up. I'll go and shrink this a little more. And then this one can go up a little. And this can also go up that way. Remember, I'm trying to get this curve to look as similar to the previous one as possible. So I'm going to squash the overall timing here. Like that maybe. And then that looks a little better. Let's see what that looks and feels like. So if I go back and play. It's kind of getting there. And if you want to be a bit more precise with how high these balls should go, you can actually make use of a simple trick. Let me show you. I'm going to press H to see everything. To make this decay work a little better, you can create a fake reference graph, which you can then delete. But you can use that graph to align your keyframes to. Here's what I'm talking about. I'm going to select the sphere and then go to one of the other properties, let's say the X position here. I'll keyframe that. I'll then go forward to, let's say, here. And I want the X to be reduced. So I'm going to go and drag this down. And then I'll keyframe this. Now the whole purpose of me doing that, let me just now go and select the sphere and then press H. The whole purpose of me doing that is to create this graph. I can now take this graph and then just put this to here. I'm going to line this up with the beginning here. There. I'll then take the second point of the graph and then drag this down to here. Now, of course, you can see the X of the object keeps updating and it keeps getting messed up. But I'm really not interested in the X. In fact, I can just go here and then turn off the X animation, but the graph will remain. What I want to do is to create a nice decay here by using the handles of this graph. So I can select this and then drag this down. So this arrow here that I'm holding needs to be below the graph. And then this one also needs to be below. Now, you don't have to be 100% precise with this, but if I go and then push this further down, that's going to be a smoother decay. A decay like this will favor more of the last part of the animation. And you can play around with these. But the purpose here is this. Let me just make this a little smoother. And if I now select both, so I can see the Y keyframes as well, I can now try and line up the Y keyframes with this line here. It looks like the last few keyframes are closer than these. So in this case, I wouldn't make the sphere jump as high as it did now. So what I could do is to click on this and then drag it down. So it doesn't jump as high. And this feels more natural, of course, because right now the starting point is about 750. And after the first bounce, if you want the ball to go half the height, that would be about 375. Let's check this. And this is much closer to 375. Of course, I wasn't paying attention to the actual curve, so if I go to this position X, highlight the keyframe, I could lift this up a little bit maybe. And now if I go to position Y and highlight them both, I can now select this and push it further up. Like I said, it doesn't have to be 100% precise, but you use this to keep you on track. So this is going to be around here. And this one is going to be on the line here as well. That's fine. And then this one should be on that line. And this one should be on that line as well. I can now create a couple more keyframes. So I can take this, command drag here, and then also command drag this one here and hold down shift so it remains on the same line. It looks like I may have made a mistake because this one doesn't say 0 anymore. Let's just double check. Let me zoom in. This one is not on 0. And this one is not on 0 either. This one is. This one is. So I must have let go of the shift key before I let go of the mouse. So that's an easy fix. I can double click here and just type in 0 and do the same here. Double click and type in 0. And of course, 0 this one out as well. Now I'll just go and fix the handles. So I'll select this, push this down, select this one, push it down. And then maybe I can give this a little more time. And then this one goes here. And now if I press H so I can see the entire graph, you see the height keyframes, the Y keyframes, line up almost perfectly with this decaying graph. Let me go back and play this. Now I can see that the last part is a little too slow. If I play this again, just check the last bounce. That feels a little like it's floating. So that's probably because the distance between these two is a bit greater than the distance between these two. And that's an easy fix. I can just click and drag this towards left, holding down the shift key this time. And of course this one needs to go left as well. And let me zoom in. If I press S, that's going to center what I have selected. So let me just select all three here and then press S. And now I'm going to click here and then fix this handle. So it's more like a curve rather than a bell. So I'm going to push this up and the same here. So this one goes out. And let me zoom out a little bit. And this one goes up a little. And this one goes left by maybe one more frame, and this goes up again. Press H. Let's try this now. Now that feels much better than what we had before. Interestingly enough, if I go and enable the X position animation, and now move this out of the way, go back to the beginning, and zoom out. And if I play this, you see that the ball is going to go from right to left. Let me actually go here a little bit. So as it falls down, it's actually going to go from right to left. Let me play. That motion of an arc is something we'll talk more about later on. So for now, I'll just go and delete the position X. Let me bring this up here, select position X, and press delete. So I only have the keyframes on position Y. If I select it, go back, and play again, this is what we have. By doing this, you're giving your objects a bit more life and character, so they don't feel as stiff anymore.